Part 3, The Fall of an Empire, and The Miracle of Redemption. The Chicago blizzard showed no mercy to anyone, especially those without a roof over their heads. Maya held Leo tight against her chest, walking through the white darkness. Her old shoes had been soaked through for hours, her 10 toes numb beyond feeling. Leo nestled into her chest, his thin coat not enough to shield his small frame, trembling from asthma. "Mom?" Leo whispered, his voice weak. "That old man? Is he a bad person?" Maya stopped under the awning of a closed store. She knelt down, pulling her scarf up to cover her son's face. "No, baby. He's not a bad person, but you didn't take his house." Leo looked up at his mother, his big round eyes clear and innocent. "Why not, Mom? I'm so cold." The innocent question from her 7-year-old cut through Maya's heart like a knife. She knew what she had done. She knew she had just thrown away the only chance for her son to have a warm home, a soft bed, a future without huddling in damp basements. But she also knew, if she accepted that house, she would betray her father, betray the memory of the man who hanged himself in a warehouse because he couldn't bear the humiliation Arthur Sterling had caused. Betray the husband who died in a workplace accident because companies like Sterling cut safety costs. Betray herself, the woman who had sold her wedding ring to save an enemy without knowing it. "I'm sorry, Leo." Maya hugged her son tight, hot tears rolling down his cheeks. "Mom will find somewhere else, I promise." But she knew, in this -10-degree night, that promise might be the last lie she ever told her son. Sometimes, poverty isn't the worst thing. The worst thing is being forced to choose between dignity and survival. Maya was facing that choice right now, and her decision would shape not only her life, but the life of the man who had once destroyed her family. If you're following this journey, subscribe and turn on notifications, because what's about to happen will challenge everything you think you know about money, power, and forgiveness. 2 hours later, Maya and Leo found shelter at St. Michael's Church in the Pilsen neighborhood. The priest, an elderly Mexican man with kind eyes, opened the door when he saw mother and son huddled on the steps. "Come in, child. Come in." Father Miguel handed Maya a thick wool blanket and a bowl of hot soup. "God will protect you tonight." Maya sat in the corner of the church, Leo already asleep in her arms. The boy was breathing more evenly thanks to the last heart pill. She looked up at the crucifix, and for the first time in her life, she felt angry at God. "Why did you let my father die? Why did you let my husband die? Why did you make me choose between taking money from an enemy and letting my son suffer?" And then she remembered Arthur Sterling's eyes when she threw the keys at his chest. That wasn't the look of a powerful man being insulted. That was the look of a dying man, not from heart disease, but from the belated realization that he was wrong. Maya shook her head, chasing the thought away. She couldn't pity him. She couldn't soften, because if she softened, she would betray everything her father died to protect. But deep down, a small voice whispered, "Are you punishing him, or are you punishing yourself?" Meanwhile, at Northwestern Memorial Hospital, Arthur Sterling lay in a hospital bed, wires everywhere, the heart monitor beeping steadily. The security team had found him in the empty basement, collapsed on the floor after the 3rd heart attack. They brought him here, where Chicago's best doctors were trying to keep him alive for a few more weeks. But Arthur didn't care about living or dying. He only thought about Maya, about Leo, about her hateful yet proud eyes when she said, "I'd rather freeze to death on the sidewalk than breathe the air in a house bought with my father's blood." He was right. Money couldn't buy forgiveness. So what could? The hospital room door opened. Julian and Victoria walked in. Arthur's eldest son wore a gray suit, his face emotionless. His daughter wore a fur coat, carrying a Hermes bag, wearing sunglasses despite being indoors. "Father," Julian said, his voice cold, "we heard you had a strange experience last night, dressing in rags, wandering the streets, claiming to be homeless. The board is very concerned about your mental state." Victoria added, "Yes, Dad. I spoke with Dr. Morrison. He said your heart condition might be affecting your cognitive abilities. We've prepared paperwork to petition the court to declare you mentally incompetent, to protect the family assets. Arthur looked at his two children, saw the greed in their eyes, saw the complete absence of love, and he smiled, a smile that made Julian and Victoria step back. Children, Arthur said, his voice hoarse but firm, do you know why I was wandering the streets last night? Julian frowned. Because you're sick. Because you're not thinking clearly. No. Arthur shook his head. I went out there to find a worthy heir, and I found one. Victoria scoffed. You're joking? You're going to leave your fortune to some homeless person? Not a homeless person. Arthur looked straight into his daughter's eyes. But the daughter of Mateo Torres. The room fell silent. Julian spoke first. Mateo Torres? That name. You acquired his factory 25 years ago. He committed suicide. What are you talking about? Him saying... Arthur sat up, pulling the satellite phone from his hospital gown pocket. I found my own victim, and I realized that this entire empire was built on the blood of people like her. He pressed a button. Edward, his personal attorney, answered immediately. Edward, activate Protocol Phoenix. Transfer all my shares in Sterling Capital to the Southside Community Land Trust. Transfer all personal assets to the Torres Charitable Foundation. And release the internal audit report on Julian and Victoria. Julian went pale. Father, you can't do that. That's family property. Family property? Arthur laughed bitterly. Do you know how your mother died? She died of loneliness. Because you never visited, because I was never home, because I was too busy building this damn empire only to realize it's just a golden tomb. He turned to Edward through the speakerphone. Release it, Edward. Let the world know Julian colluded with competitors to sell insider information. Let the world know Victoria used company funds to buy real estate in Switzerland. Let the world know Arthur Sterling's children are greedy, heartless, and unworthy of inheriting a single cent. Julian lunged for the phone, but two suited bodyguards blocked him. Father, you're destroying our family, Julian screamed. Arthur looked at his son, his eyes sad but resolute. No, son, I'm saving you. I'm freeing you from the curse of money. You'll each receive $5 million, enough to live comfortably, but not enough to destroy yourselves. And maybe you'll learn to live like normal human beings. Victoria started crying, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of rage at being deprived. Arthur turned away. Get out. Both of you, I don't want to see you anymore. Dear friend, there are moments in life when we must choose between keeping what we've built or destroying it to build again from scratch. Arthur Sterling just chose the latter. And that's the bravest choice a father can make, not leaving his children a fortune, but leaving them a lesson. If this story is touching something deep within you, share it with your loved ones, because this message needs to spread. 6 months later, spring came to Chicago, bringing the first warm rays of sun melting the ice that had covered the city. Maya stood in front of a small 2-bedroom house in the Bronzeville neighborhood. The house wasn't large, wasn't luxurious, but it was clean, warm, and had a small garden in the back. On the living room window, carnations were blooming. This wasn't a gift from a billionaire. This was the result of Maya applying to the Southside Community Land Trust, a newly established nonprofit that bought properties and rented them to working poor families at only 30% of their income. With a commitment to never evict for real estate speculation. She had gone through rigorous screening. She had signed the lease herself with her own meager janitor's wages. She walked into this house with her head held high as a self-reliant mother, not a charity case. Thanks to the Land Trust's health program, Leo had been seen by the best pulmonologists. His asthma was completely under control. His cheeks were now rosy, and the wheezing that haunted winter nights had completely disappeared. Mom, look! Leo ran out of the house, waving a paper kite. Mr. Arthur promised to teach me to fly kites in the park today. Maya smiled, her eyes softening. All right, put on your jacket first, Mr. Arthur. That was the name everyone in this neighborhood knew. 6 months ago, the land trust hired an elderly maintenance worker to do landscaping and minor repairs for the community homes. He lived in a small attic apartment in the senior housing building at the end of the street. He wore faded work jackets, old work boots, and always carried a toolbox. He swept leaves, fixed leaky faucets, replaced hallway light bulbs, and patiently taught neighborhood kids how to tie shoes or grow tomatoes in the community garden. No one knew who he used to be. They only knew he worked the hardest, smiled the kindest, and always looked at Maya and Leo with eyes filled with deep respect and gratitude. Maya had known his true identity from the first day he applied to the trust. Edward, his former attorney, had secretly sent her a letter explaining everything about Protocol Phoenix, about how Arthur had dismantled his own empire, and how he applied for a regular janitor position, earning minimum wage, just to be near and quietly protect the community he had once crushed. Maya had been angry. She had planned to drive him away, but then she remembered what her father once told her when she was 8 years old, crying on his empty grave. Maya, hatred is like drinking poison and hoping your enemy dies. Don't let your enemy define the rest of your life. And so she opened the door, not to welcome a father, but to hire a repairman. That afternoon, at the park at the end of the street, Arthur sat on a bench, patiently untangling Leo's kite string. His hair had turned completely white, the wrinkles on his face deeper, but his eyes, those pale blue eyes that were once cold as ice, now shone with a warm, strangely peaceful light. Maya walked over, carrying 2 glasses of lemon tea. She handed one to him. "Thank you, Maya," Arthur smiled, taking the glass. His hands were calloused, small scratches from plumbing work still not healed. They were the hands of a true laborer. "Mr. Arthur," Maya sat on the bench, looking at him. "Yesterday, Mrs. Rodriguez said you helped her fix her entire porch roof. She wanted to pay you extra, but you refused." Arthur nodded, his eyes following Leo's kite, soaring high in the blue sky. "I already get paid by the land trust. Helping her was something I wanted to do. That roof was leaking. If I didn't fix it, she'd get sick when the rainy season comes. Old folks getting sick is troublesome." Maya was silent. She looked at the man who once held $80 billion, now worrying about a leaky porch roof for an elderly neighbor. "Mr. Arthur," Maya spoke gently but seriously. "Last week I walked past Northwestern Hospital. I saw you coming out of the cardiology clinic." Arthur paused. He turned to look at Maya, not hiding anything. "Yes, I went for a routine checkup." "What did the doctor say?" Arthur smiled, a smile carrying his own amazement. "The doctor said, 'I'm surviving, and not just surviving, my heart is healing.'" Maya frowned. "Healing? But 6 months ago, you had end-stage heart failure. The doctor said you had only months." "Yes. Medically, my dilated cardiomyopathy couldn't reverse itself." Arthur set down his tea, his calloused hand placing gently over his left chest. "But Dr. Chen said there are cases medicine calls reverse cardiac remodeling when the root cause of stress and overload is completely removed. When the sympathetic nervous system is no longer stimulated by anxiety, ambition, and fear of loss, the human body has a miraculous ability to heal itself." He looked straight into Maya's eyes, his gaze crystal clear. "But I know the real reason, Maya. It's not medicine. It's the miracle of redemption." "A miracle?" "For 40 years, my heart beat for greed. It had to pump blood to nourish an empire built on lies and other people's tears. It was heavy with regrets I deliberately ignored. But that night, when you threw the key at my chest and walked into the blizzard, my heart shattered. And in that shattering, I was finally free." Arthur pointed toward the land trust houses, toward the laughing children, toward Leo running under the sunlight. "I shed the burden of being a king. I no longer had to fear loss, because I had lost everything. I no longer had to guard against anyone, because I had nothing left to be stolen. Every sweep of my broom, every light bulb I replaced, was an apology I sent to this world. And when you agreed to hire me, when you called me Mr. Arthur, instead of enemy. You gave me the privilege of being human." Tears rolled down Maya's face, but she was smiling. She reached out, taking Arthur's calloused hand. "My father would be very happy to see you now, Mr. Arthur. Not because of how much money you gave away, but because you learned how to bow your head. Dear friend, medicine can explain Arthur's recovery with technical terms about blood pressure and the nervous system. But those who walked with him from that cold basement night understand it was a miracle of the soul. When you let go of the most toxic burdens in your heart, your body knows how to revive itself. If this story of redemption brings you a bit of hope, subscribe and share this video. Because out there, many people carry illnesses caused by their own hatred and greed, and they need to hear that forgiveness is the only medicine. 5 years later, the Southside neighborhood had transformed. No more abandoned buildings or dark alleys. The Community Land Trust had turned it into a model residential area where the poor owned their own living spaces, where community gardens were lush green and children's laughter echoed through the streets. In Maya's small house, dinner was being served. Leo, now a tall, healthy 12-year-old, who just won first prize in his school's science fair, was excitedly telling about the water filter model he built. Sitting at the other end of the table was Arthur. He was now 74, his hair white as snow, his steps slow, and needing a wooden cane, but his face was radiant, and his eyes shone with pride looking at Leo. "Mr. Arthur, what do you think of my model?" Leo asked, putting a piece of meat in his bowl. Arthur laughed loudly, his warm laughter echoing in the small kitchen. "Wonderful, Leo. You have the makings of an engineer. But remember this, the best technology is technology that serves the most vulnerable. Remember that." "I will, Mr. Arthur." Maya sat beside them, smiling as she watched the two. She was no longer an exhausted poor janitor working night shifts. Thanks to support from the Torres Charitable Foundation Scholarship, an independent fund with a board elected by the community, and Maya was now the board chair. She had returned to nursing school and just graduated as a head nurse at the very community hospital where she once worked as a janitor. They weren't a traditional family. Arthur never dared claim to be Leo's grandfather, and Maya never called him father. They were broken pieces of life, mended by remorse, dignity, and time. After dinner, Leo went upstairs to do homework. Maya and Arthur sat on the porch, drinking tea, watching the neighborhood light up. "Mr. Arthur," Maya said softly, "Edward called me today. He said Julian and Victoria, they've spent all their $5 million in stipends. Julian's drowning in gambling debt, and Victoria just got her 4th divorce and is suing for assets. Edward asked for your opinion." Arthur was silent for a moment, his eyes looking at the night sky. No anger, no triumph, only deep sadness and complete letting go. "Tell Edward to send them each a one-way ticket to a small town and send them addresses of rehab centers, community work camps. I gave them money to buy freedom, but they used it to buy prisons. I can't save those who don't want to be saved, Maya. I can only pray for them." Maya nodded, placing her hand on his shoulder. "You've done everything you could, Mr. Arthur. The rest is their own karma." Arthur turned to look at Maya, his eyes filled with gratitude. "Thank you, Maya. Thank you for not letting me die in that basement. Thank you for giving me a place to come home to." Maya smiled, squeezing his shoulder gently. "Thank you, Mr. Arthur, for proving to me that even the cruelest people can learn to love." The spring breeze blew across the porch, carrying the scent of carnations. Arthur Sterling closed his eyes, listening to the steady, strong beat in his chest. He once thought a person's legacy was skyscrapers and bank account numbers. But now, as the shadows of old age gradually fell, he knew his true legacy was sitting right beside him, living, laughing, and forgiving him. And his heart continued to beat. A miracle of redemption. Arthur and Maya's story has ended, but its message will live on. That true wealth isn't in how much you own, but in how much you dare to let go. That humanity's greatest chain isn't debt, but hatred. And the greatest miracle in this world isn't magic, but forgiveness. If this story touched your heart, if it helped you realize it's never too late to start over, hit subscribe and share this video with those you love. Let the message of redemption spread so this world has fewer ice empires and more warm homes. Thank you for listening. Thank you for believing in the miracle of the human heart. See you in the next stories, where light always finds a way through the smallest cracks of darkness.